Hello, everyone. Jak Syn here on behalf of Fiend.com and Future Daze, and today it is another exciting episode of Artist Interviews. Today, I am sitting with The Subtheory. How you doing today?
Hey, I'm good. I'm good. Yourself?
I'm doing pretty well. You know, a nice, beautiful day outside. It'd be a lot better if they weren't working on the building across the way, but hey, you know what? It's the little things, you know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely.
But the weather's nice. The weather's nice, and the birds are out. Sun's out, which I think is good. I mean, it's getting a little bit hot indoors, but hey, we can always go out for walks, right?
Absolutely right. Yeah.
So today we're going to ask you a couple of questions and see where it goes from here. Are you ready to get into it?
Absolutely. Ready when you are.
What are three of your most memorable moments from your musical career?
I was thinking long and hard about this because there's a few. I've been in bands, played music for a long, long time, and I think one of the strangest moments ever, it was years and years ago in Menorca. So there's, the Balearic Islands, Ibiza, Menorca. I was in a band that toured round, and we supported the Temptations in this huge festival in Menorca where something like 500,000 people passed by. And like, there's the Temptations, like a household name. And like, we're like a sort of, I don't even know what we were. I guess almost sort of R&B, but not quite. And we sort of supported them and blew them off stage. And everyone's like, "You were amazing!" And we're like, "Are you joking? That's the Temptations." And like the legends, we nobody. And these kind of the Spanish kids are going, "You're great, you're great, you're great." That's blew my mind a little. So that was pretty cool. The second one was recently, actually. So I was lucky enough to work with, Janelle Monáe. So her guitarist, she's like a big sort of film star and singer.
Oh,
so
yes. Sorry, it took me a second.
That's all right. So I worked with her guitarist and musical director. Sort of did some remixes for him. Did a little bit of production for him. Halfway through, I'm working on it. I suddenly realised that this guy, not only does he work with Janelle Monáe, it's Maceo Parker from James Brown's band, nephew. I'm like, oh my God. I look on his Facebook and he's got his dad's like best friends with Ruth Bader Ginsburg because he was a law professor. I was like, I'm sat here in my little studio remixing his track. Again, it's kind of one of those weird moments you sort of have to sort of pinch yourself a little bit to go, is this real? So, and then I guess the third one is, and this probably won't mean a lot to anyone that's not from the UK, but I grew up watching a program called Match of the Day. It's a sports broadcast, like a football show. It's kind of been going since the 60s or something. And my music got played there. I always said as a kid I wanted to be on that because I wanted to be a football player when I was a kid. My music got played on it, and that's like the nearest I got to actually being on the program. And I was watching it, and it came on, my music, with all this kind of action from I guess you call it soccer, but I was like that's my childhood dream right there. Not quite how I imagined it, but it's pretty close. So I was very, very happy with that. That's kind of the three most memorable moments, I guess.
Well, those are some pretty awesome moments, I'll tell you right there. I mean, being able to do that, open up for the Temptations, I mean, holy crap. I mean, that's huge. I mean, I remember when I was younger, it's like my dad used to play Temptations like all the time. My dad was really big into like, music from Motown, a huge record collection, because he was also a disco DJ. Right, late 70s, early 80s. So you had like tons of records, a lot of funk, a lot of stuff from Motown. So it's like I grew up with a lot of that stuff. I'd be waking up in the morning to like sugar pie, honey bunch. You know what I mean? So like
it's the soundtrack. It's soundtrack of it. Yeah.
Exactly, just hitting me in my brain. You know what I mean? So it was like to be up there with them. I'm sure that's a once in a lifetime moment in your life where you kind of go, oh my God, I can't believe this, that I get to do this in this setting. But also
we got off stage and we're all sort of, you kind of, you're sweaty and whatnot, and you're looking up and then suddenly they're like, Purple was a rolling stone. I'm like, that's the Temptation.
That's the
That's crazy.
Temptations right there. Oh my
Yeah.
God.
Yeah.
I would have died. I would have died. I would
You're
have
right.
fall
Right.
over. You know what I mean? Newer generations of people.
Right.
I'm going to tell you guys out there, if you have never been exposed to the Temptations, go out and check out their music. And if you've never heard of them, but I'm telling you, you guys will definitely love what they do because they are one of the largest
Yeah.
acts that has ever contributed to the soul and funk Motown sound.
Their moment, they in the 70s, they sort of went, because they did the Motown stuff, then they sort of went a bit psychedelic and kind of almost psych rock, the elements of that. So you hear some of the later stuff and you're like, they're using synths. They've got synths in the music. Do you know what I mean? It's like, you don't think of art bands like that doing that, but they do.
Well, yeah, I mean, think about it. It's like as you transition out of the style and you continue to grow and build, I think it's like some of the earliest tastes of what came throughout the 80s and 90s. When you start having the influences of like Prince, you know what I mean? As you start transitioning into like and even like Earth, Wind and Fire, you know what I mean? When you listen to Earth, Wind and Fire, it was like, even though it's dancey and it's, funky and soul in a way, but you have this electronic element behind it where it's like this big band feeling almost, but you can really groove to it. So I think those earlier beginnings, as you continue, kind of transition out of that, it influences this whole new generation of artists that really kind of bring that funky electronic sound.
Completely. Absolutely, yeah, couldn't agree more. And you can sort of look through to when they start introducing things like 808 drum machines to like Marvin Gaye. Obviously, everyone thinks 808s, they straight away think of electro and stuff, but Marvin Gaye, Sexual Healing was one of the first sort of prominent uses of that drum machine. And you're like, oh, okay, got a drum machine on. And then suddenly you add some synth to it, bring some other stuff into it. There you go. Got 80s synth.
So isn't that funny? It's like the way I like to say this thing every now and again. It's like the future of music lies in the past. It does.
Yeah.
It really does, because in order for us to continue to move into the future, we take those influences from the past and we build on them. So, I mean, it's really great to see that, like, even going back all the way back, like even to like when we're talking about Motown and we're talking about that funky soul movement, all of that led to where we are now. If it wasn't for that, you wouldn't have the kind of music that you have today, which I think is just amazing.
That's cool. No, you're absolutely right. You sort of have to dig back in to all the influences, and I think that's something that I've always been really, really keen to bring through. Is everything I make now is like the summation of all of the things I've listened to my whole life, all of those things that have been influenced. I think we store all of them, some consciously and some subconsciously, and it's like a sponge. You know that was that film The Blob, 50s sort of B movie. It's a bit like that. It's like this. It just draws it all in, and kind of as it gets, you hear more and more music, you sort of get stronger and bigger, and then that's sort of the way I sort of view. Just realised I'm saying I'm a blob, but that's the way I sort of view it. It's you kind of filter out the good, the bad. You bring through the stuff that is genuine, that you feel. That for me is the essence of how to make music from the heart. It's the summation of all the influences, and things art and cinema and stuff as well. I think that they're an important part, and you kind of then bring through your take on it, your spin on it, your kind of the way that you create that from the sort of the ingredients.
Exactly right. I mean, our brains, I like to, like, it's funny that you brought up the blob. It's like our brains are the blob. And we are sucking up these little bits of information all over the place. You know what I mean? Over the years, we're just sucking them up. And they are contributing to the larger narrative of our life. And it's like we recall, it's like everything that we do in life, it's sort of kind of like a callback to something that we were influenced by in our past. So I think that I love that analogy that you said it's the blob, because really, the more information you suck up, the larger that brain's going to get. So
Absolutely, absolutely, yeah.
More experiences all the time. What would you say is your favorite musical release that you've worked on?
For me, my favorite release, and this is going to be one of those cliche things, I think it's the EP I've got out now. I think it's the kind of the culmination of a lot of a process of trying different things, seeing what works, seeing what doesn't work. I think this is the most cohesive in the way it was put together. I think this release, previous releases have always been, I've intended to do a release, and this is some stuff that I've pulled together for it. This, because this kind of, I started writing this when we first went into lockdown. And normally the writing process is quite long. This kind of came boom, 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 boom. They came literally in the order that the EP's out. It's this idea came out, then this idea, then this idea, and this idea. And it sort of flowed. And it flowed in a way that it's almost a bit unnatural for me, because I sort of tend to be a bit stop-start, look, take a step back, look at things, take a step back again, keep looking at things. This was really right the way through. And I think from a sort of a technical point of view, I think I tried a lot of different techniques, things that I hadn't really done before. Things to do with sort of the way that I layered the drums and various other elements to it. Tried a lot of different things, and again, it's the sort of thing where I just went, oh yeah, this works. Oh, this works. Oh, this. It's almost like a happy accident in the way it came about, and I think it's probably the least stressful release. I think I'm the sort of person when I'm about to give something out, I get really stressed, really nervous, really. I have that problem where I can't finish things because I worry about them too much. I need to tweak this and I need to do that and keep playing. I never know when to let go. This, I went, oh, this, oh, there you go. I think it's done, you know, and not in a sort of, hopefully not in a sort of way that's undercooked. You know what I mean? It's just that it felt natural. It felt unforced. It felt like it was just sort of coming out of me rather than me pushing it out, which is not a very pleasant analogy, but I think hopefully it gets the point that it's sort of almost unconscious, I guess, which is much less stressful, I think.
Well, you know what, I'll tell you right there. It's like, it's funny how that works. You know, it's like when you're working on something, any type of music you're working on, or actually anything you're working on, you'll get to a certain point where you kind of go like, this actually feels good. I feel like I'm in a good headspace now. I feel like it feels right. You have that sense that kind of creeps up on you going like, hey, stop playing with it. You know what I mean? Yeah. So it's like, I think for a lot of artists, it's like we have this thing where we kind of go through these motions where you kind of going like, you're tinkering so much with your stuff, and then all of a sudden, like, you kind of go, I don't know if this sounds right or if that sounds right. Like maybe this works, maybe this doesn't work. But it's like when you look inwardly, and then all of a sudden you have this feeling that says, hey, it's fine. You know what I mean? And when it says it's fine, you kind of go like, okay, but the other part of you is kind of going, but it has to be perfect. But the part of you is saying it's fine. It's like, listen, this is me telling you that this sounds good. So listen to that. You know, don't overthink it. Don't overdo it, because sometimes we do that. I know I'm guilty of doing that a lot. You know, with my stuff, it's like I will sit there going like, spend so much time on it, and then I'll get to the point where I gotta go after it's over. Go, this sounds like crap. Like I've overdone it.
And you're second guessing yourself all the time, going, I could do this. But, oh no, let me just look at this bit. Let me just. And sometimes you sort of think, I don't know about you, but you get into the headspace where this has to be right for everyone else, and you sort of forget that actually it's got to be right for you. It's got to be. I mean, obviously you want people to like it, absolutely, but at the same time you've got to be in a space where you go, I've done this for me, and hopefully other people dig it as well. But this has got to be. I've got to be happy with this, and I think that's part of the. Without sort of getting too sort of pop psychology about it, it's probably a little bit about why I normally sit and tinker with things. There's a bit of perhaps insecurity, maybe a bit. Do I like this? Is this? Do you know what I mean? And then with this, it felt like, no, I'm actually really happy with this. I'm not that I don't really care whether anyone else likes it or not, but I genuinely really like this, the way it's come together, and hopefully then people will dig that. So
I think you're completely right about that. It's like, you get to that point where you just kind of go like, ah, I have to kind of rein myself in a little bit. I have to just kind of pull myself back, you know. So I you know, to everybody out there, if you are working on your stuff and all of a sudden you feel like this wave come over you saying like, hey, this is fine, this is good, like listen to that voice inside of yourself.
Yeah, absolutely.
Stop and just go and think to yourself, what is it that I really want to convey? What is it that I really want to show to the world? And if that other voice in you creeps up and says, well, I don't know, it's got to be perfect, it's like, maybe it doesn't have to be. There's no such thing as perfect, really. There is no such thing as perfect. There's just different, you know? So it's like we get to those points where we kind of second guess ourselves. But just listen to that little voice and really kind of turn up the volume, because it will be okay. It really will.
And I think you're absolutely right, because no matter what you do, somebody is going to love it, but there's going to be somebody that hates it or just doesn't get it. So I think you have to kind of get to the point where you like it, and you have to give yourself permission to say, this is really good. I like this. And I think too often as an artist, you kind of go, yeah, but what if this isn't good? What if this isn't good? You know, you get the little kind of the little devil on your shoulder going, yeah, you can't do that. This is going to be really bad. Everyone's going to hate it. They're going to say this. They're going to say, and obviously you forget that there should be a little angel on the other side saying, actually, this is pretty good. Pretty happy with it.
Yeah, I mean, you make music. When we start making music, when we start creating anything in the world, we inherently do it for ourselves, to kind of just put out what we feel inside of ourselves. Sometimes people like it, sometimes people don't like it. I know it's a weird landscape now, because a lot of, you know, artists, like we're really kind of pushing our sales online and things like that. It's like, well, nobody's listening to it. Well, that's not really your fault. You know what I mean? It's just a whole different landscape that you have to navigate. You have to do so many things online to get your music to be heard by people. So it's like you really have to beat the pavement, you know, in a metaphorical sense, online. Because back then, years and years ago, remember when I first started out, I was like beating the pavement, passing out flyers to get people to go to your shows, you know? So it's like word of mouth and stuff like that. But now it's, you know, yes, it's word of mouth, but it's online. Posting, you're like trying to get your music all set up in the right places, trying to make sure it's uploaded here and it goes to here. So it's a lot going on, but it's like inherently at its core, it's just what you want to convey to the world. So don't get wrapped up in your head, people. Like sometimes you get wrapped up in your head, you kind of go like, well, maybe not, people aren't going to like it. And I'm like, well, all music when it starts out is not made for everybody else. Inherently, it's made for what you want to convey. And if people like it, they like it. But one of the things you'll always understand is that one person who likes your first album may not like your second album. But somebody who likes your second album may not like your first album. So there's always different bases of fans out there that like certain things that you put out. Because guess what? The journey of music, you can make the same album over and over and over again, but that's not the same thing for everybody out there. You know, it's like constantly people will make one album, then they'll be influenced by something else, and they'll make another album that sounds completely different. But that's just the journey of a musician. It's just a journey of an artist. It's like everything is always constantly changing and evolving and moving in different directions. It's never the same thing. And your sound right here, Andy Hill's sound right here, everybody. His sound is very diverse. It's very influenced by all kinds of different things. Like you could hear, like what we were talking about earlier, you could hear some of those influences of that funky soul stuff in there. But you can also get those influences of that retro futuristic feel, even dynamic stuff, cinematic stuff. It's pulling from all these different areas. And I think that's what makes your sound really great, is that it's very diverse and very eclectic.
Good. That's what I was hoping. Thank you. It's interesting. You talked about earlier about the online stuff and the way that the music landscape has changed. Can I just tell you a really quick story about when I first started out in music? This is going to make me sound really old and archaic and historic, but when I first used to record demo tapes onto tape, I used to ring up the record companies in London and ask who the head of A&R was and make a note of it, dressed as a motor, like a bicycle courier, because you see them everywhere in London. cycle up to the record label, hand my cassette in with the guys. I've written his name on the envelope. Go, this is an express delivery for whoever, head of A&R. Can you please give it to them? And because I'm wearing a cycle security, they think it's from someone really, really important, and it would always get handed straight to them. I got rejected constantly, but it was always, when I tell people that, they're like, you had tape, you recorded on tape. This is like before tapes became cool again. And it's amazing when you sort of look at the way that things are online now, and you sort of do the shouting out on, Facebook, Twitter, etc., etc. And they look at it and go, wow, if only they had that back then.
No, I know exactly what you mean. It's like going in disguise, trying to get your name out there as much as you can. I totally understand. It's like I used to wait, at the backstage behind shows, with my CD to give to like people from bands or like managers and things like that. Waiting outside the Whiskey A Go Go, the Roxy, the Key Club, places like that. It's like those are the things that you do. Those are the things that you do. I make phone calls and call people and leave voice messages, for like production people or like call up, music promoters and leave voicemails, stating that, this is at the time, Desk Diaries manager. This is Desk Diaries manager, things like that. So I would do that because that's just how you got where you needed to be back then.
Yep.
There was all these little things that you could do. I don't know if you've ever seen the movie Airheads with Brendan Fraser, but he put on that like hat, and tried to be like, oh, I'm like a courier coming into the building to try to drop off his demo tape. That's just the way things work then. You'd have to do all kinds of things to get your music out there, to get ahead of the game. So
a creative sort of way of doing it, I think was
definitely. You want to be the loud, you're like the person on the street corner and go, hey, everybody come on in and see this great band. They're really awesome. You guys are going to really love them. So
with a big like golf sign here.
Yeah, exactly. Like, come on in. And then there was big old like thing going, hello. Fun times. What would you say was the drive behind getting you into making music?
For me, music's always been about linking memories. So just strong sort of, I think we spoke a little bit about it earlier, the way the brain sort of absorbs everything. It ties music to periods of your life, happy or sad or whatever. And for me, whenever I look back onto sort of early life, no matter what happened, it's always linked with music in some way. And it's always meant to me that music's been really powerful. It's about emotion. It sparks emotion, gives emotion, it soothes, it enrages, it calms you, excites you, it does all these things to you. It changes your state, changes the way you are. And I think for me, that's always been the attraction, is to give a little bit back to other people, to say, whether you like it or not, if it sparks something in you, in one person, the way they think about something, just for that one moment, that's really all I've been after the whole time. That one fan. Thank you, that one fan.
I hear that right there. It's like, your connection, over time, it's like, however you start on the journey of music, like whether it's because you want to get popular or you want to pick up girls or you just want to convey an emotion or you just want to, just write something to just get it out because you feel that inherent need. It's all you and your core. It's like it really defines you as a person. And even though your journey is constantly fluid, with what you do, it's core. It's about emotions. It's about triggering those things inside of people, because guess what? It's like you may write about something that might be depressing to you or might be sad to you, but somebody else interprets it in a completely different way. It might speak to somebody who's going through a tough time, or it might be speaking to somebody who goes through a very happy time in their life. It doesn't matter, but everybody's constantly interpreting these things in a different way, which I think is amazing. We are at this point where in human history where we're able to feel all of these different emotions because they're being triggered by sound.
That's exactly it. That's exactly what, yes. But you're absolutely right. I couldn't have said it better. It is that kind of emotional connection. It's creating that feeling within somebody else that perhaps was there, but perhaps wasn't there, and different people interpret it, and you get it in a million different ways. Somebody writes a song, and then I was watching one of the Song Exploder thing about REM earlier, and they said this song "Losing My Religion." You get all these people writing into them saying it's about this, it's about that, and they say all of them are right. Just because we wrote it doesn't mean that's necessarily what it's about. It's about how you interpret it. And I thought that was really, really powerful.
That's true, because everybody's right, because you can interpret it in any way you choose to.
Yeah.
What are you looking forward to accomplishing the most moving forward?
So I'm working on another EP. I've got a couple of people lined up that I'm working with. So a shout out to last year's. By the way, if you haven't checked them out, check them out. The last year's. There's probably going to be finishing up an album for next year, and I'm just can't sort of say too much about it. I'm in talks with about soundtracking something for a streaming channel, but I'm literally not allowed to say about it too much yet. So, but it's fingers crossed it's going to be pretty good for next year. That's obviously where I want to get to. So I look at I don't know if you watched Cobra Kai.
Yes, I do.
I mean, it's not Cobra Kai, just to set that right straight. But you watch that and you go, oh, that's amazing. I really wanted to do a soundtrack to that. And it's all these other things. There's a High Score program on the Netflix as well, which is about video games and stuff, which I look at and go, oh, that's got an amazing soundtrack. I think it's Power Glove, actually. And you just, that's the sort of thing I want to sort of get into. I want to have that kind of moment when somebody watches a Netflix show or an Amazon Prime show or something and goes, I really dig that soundtrack. That's kind of what I want to get to as well. So,
and those are some pretty awesome goals right there, right there, like being able to score like a TV show or even a movie, whatever it is, a miniseries, but have that kind of, that thing that's tailor-made to what you design, that retro futuristic feeling, but also with all of your different elements that you pop into your music. I think that's great, and I think that's very attainable. I was speaking to, in an earlier interview, I was speaking to Thought Beats, and his thing is that he wanted to score for a huge blockbuster movie. That was his thing. Like, he's done some TV stuff, like he's done some streaming stuff, you know what I mean? He scored for stuff like that, but his thing was that he wanted to score a blockbuster movie, and I thought to myself, oh my God, I would love to go to a blockbuster movie and hear your music. Like going, oh, I recognize this artist doing the soundtrack right here. It was like when I saw, what was it, Summer of '84, which was scored by Matos. I was like, oh my God, this is perfect right here. All the music that was written was just so good for this movie. And that's how, I think that's some artists like have their thing where I want to just tour the world. I want to like play in every place I can possibly play. And you have other artists that like, I want to score movies and TV shows. I want to do that. I want to bring that feeling to larger audiences. And that right there, I think is just amazing.
No, cool. Because I think, everyone's obviously heard the Stranger Things when that first came out. The theme tune come out, and it's funny because all the people, even my non-sort of musical friends or the non-synth friends, all go, oh, that theme tune. It's the first thing they say. Whenever someone brings up Stranger Things, they go, yeah, that theme tune, that's dope. And you're like, that's the power of of a good soundtrack.
Exactly, that is the power of a good soundtrack, because people will walk down the street humming it. People will walk down the street constantly recognizing. Anytime it comes on, they go, oh, I know that.
Yeah.
I know that right there. And then of course the hardcore fans will know that, and they'll know the artist who did it too. So,
Right. Yeah.
That's great. And also too, like being able to do that collaboration with Lost Years, I'm sure that's going to be freaking amazing. Like when that comes out, because
he's incredible. So
great artist. I've heard some of his stuff. It's really, really good stuff. So I'm excited that you're going to, that you're working with them.
Yeah, definitely. Really, really excited. It's kind of one of those things that came together on Twitter. Just kind of a bit of a back and forth, and we're like, let's try something. So really, really good. Really
Which
good. It's the power of the internet. So
exactly the power of internet, and all it takes now is like just contacting the artist and talking to them. You know, like talking to them like regular people like we're talking right now. You know,
yeah,
it's like
yeah,
it. You know, all the artists that I've had on this show, being able to talk to them. It's like we're up to almost 90 episodes. And every artist I've had the pleasure of speaking to on the show, all it was, this is for me to you guys out there, all it was is me contacting the artist and the artist getting in touch with me. That's how it was online, having a conversation through an email, through an instant message, just like that, because we're not able to see each other in person. You know what I mean? But everybody that I've spoken to online, everybody I've spoken to like through the camera has always been very personable, very nice. You know, just like you right here. Everybody's just down to earth, and that's what I think is so great. Is that there's no wall, there's no barrier. It's just people.
They come down, haven't they? Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So if you're fearful of talking to somebody, or like asking how they're doing, or wondering if they're going to respond to your message, don't be fearful of that. Everybody, just contact them. Get it out there.
What's the worst? Yeah, the worst they can say is no.
Yeah, what's the worst that could happen? No,
Right.
And you don't even have to talk on the phone anymore. We don't even talk on the phone anymore.
Right.
But if we wanted to, we could, but we barely do. I mean, it's one of those things where, like, if somebody calls, you go, "Why are they calling me?" Like,
right. When my phone rings, I'm like, "What do I do? What do I do?"
Yeah. The same thing when somebody knocks on your door. Like, who's knocking on the door?
Nobody knocks on the door.
Yeah, no, please. Yeah, exactly. So we kind of cower in the corner going, "Oh my God." But yeah, I mean, it's just as simple as reaching out to somebody and having a conversation.
Right.
That's all it is, and it will take you some amazing places.
Absolutely, yeah, couldn't agree more. It's I want to say level the playing field is not the right expression. It's kind of it's more accessible, I think. So you can speak to somebody on Twitter. Occasionally, I'll just tweet somebody randomly or reply to something. Somebody like quite big, quite famous that normally you wouldn't get sort of a conversation. You sort of have a bit of back and forth with them, and you're thinking that's really great. They probably don't, no idea who I am. They're just replying to somebody on Twitter, but it's just good fun. It's good to be able to reach out and speak to people who, like before you said, you'd wait backstage or you'd wait outside the changing room door or whatever, waiting for them to finish after a concert or a gig or whatever. They're on Twitter now, or Instagram or whatever. So it's accessibility. I think that's the key. I think
accessibility, and 9 times out of 10, everybody's nice. They are. They're really personable and they're really nice. And you're right. What's the worst they can say is no. Exactly. What positive message would you give your fans out there?
So I think for me, it's uncertain times. It's the new normal, as they say. But I think there's 3 fundamental things for me. That's 3 B's: is be kind, be creative, and be part of something. I think too often we sort of when we isolate each other from each other. It can be very different. People can deal with it in different ways. Some people quite like that isolation. Some people don't deal with it very well at all. But be part of something. Be a scene. Be supportive of each other. And not just in sort of the music scene, but actually I think generally, be prepared to reach out to people and have people reach out to you. I think that's what's going to get us through.
Exactly. Wise words right there, everybody, from Andy.
Thank you.
Be kind, be creative, and be part of something. Through all of this going on in the world right now, a lot of people have felt isolated and alone, but you're not alone. There's a whole world of people out there who you can connect with. Connect with a loved one, connect with a friend. You know what I mean? Get in touch with them. Find out what they're working on. Fall down a rabbit hole of something new that you wouldn't normally get into. If you're feeling like you can't do anything, or you're feeling like you're unmotivated, you're not motivated to do anything right now, pick up a new skill. Pick up a new hobby. Try something different. Because when you do, amazing things will happen. It'll open up a whole world of possibilities for you. New doors will open up if you just step outside of your box. Just step outside of that box and open yourself up. Because once you do, you will go some amazing places. You really will. And staying creative. If you're an artist that is creating anything that you do, whether it's writing, producing, music making, doesn't matter. Whatever you're doing, keep that fire burning. Keep that fire burning. Look inside, look inwardly, and figure out what you want to do, what makes you happy, and make it a reality. Because through the entire spectrum of human history, some of the greatest things that have ever happened were because people decided to take a chance. Because people decided to break out of their mold and push for better. Always. Yeah. Right there, everybody. So thank you so much, Andy, for taking the time to do this interview with me today. Thank you to everybody out there who took the time to tune in and watch us have this conversation. If you like this video, be sure to like and subscribe to our Fiend YouTube channel, as we have many more awesome artist interviews on the way, just like this one with Andy Hill of The Subtheory. Thank you so much, guys, and I look forward to seeing you again very, very soon.
Thanks, everyone, for listening, and thank you very much, Jack, for having me. It's been a real pleasure. Thank you.
Well, you know what? It definitely was a real pleasure. It was so great to hear all the awesome things you have going on in your career and all the awesome things that you're doing, and finding out more about you as an artist. So to everybody out there, if you haven't checked out Subtheory, go and check him out now. It's got some amazing music. Andy really does some amazing stuff. And also be sure to check out Retro Reverb Records and all the amazing things that they have going on as well. Everybody out there, I'll see you again next time. Thank you so much.